For thousands of years, one invisible enemy shaped almost every human meal: heat. Long before electricity, before supermarkets, and before kitchens filled with humming appliances, people lived in a constant race against food spoilage. Meat could rot within days, milk turned sour overnight, and precious harvests disappeared before they could be eaten. Yet despite these challenges, civilizations across the world developed ingenious ways to keep food fresh. Their search for cold would eventually lead to one of the most important inventions in human history: the refrigerator. Our story begins more than 4,000 years ago in the scorching deserts of ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt. Temperatures regularly climbed above 40 degrees Celsius, making food preservation a daily struggle. Without reliable methods of cooling, communities depended on drying, salting, smoking, and fermenting food. These techniques extended shelf life, but they also changed taste and limited what could be stored. Some civilizations looked beyond preservation and searched for actual cold. In ancient Persia, engineers built remarkable underground structures known today as yakhchals. These enormous dome-shaped buildings, constructed from thick insulating materials, could store ice collected during winter or made artificially on freezing desert nights. Deep underground chambers kept temperatures surprisingly low, allowing ice to survive through the hottest summers. For wealthy families and royal courts, chilled water and preserved foods became symbols of both engineering brilliance and status. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks and Romans developed their own solutions. During winter, workers climbed nearby mountains to harvest snow and ice, packing them tightly into insulated pits lined with straw and sawdust. Months later, the frozen blocks were transported into cities where they cooled drinks, preserved delicate foods, and supplied the homes of the wealthy. Entire supply networks emerged simply to move ice from high mountains to crowded urban centers. In China, historical records describe the collection and storage of natural ice as early as the Zhou dynasty. Special ice houses supplied imperial palaces, helping preserve food and provide cool refreshments during the hottest months. Access to ice became a privilege reserved for rulers and the elite, demonstrating that controlling temperature had already become a source of power. Despite these innovations, cold remained seasonal, unpredictable, and expensive. Ordinary families still relied on cellars, clay pots, shaded storage rooms, and nearby rivers to slow the effects of heat. Every summer brought the same challenge, and every successful harvest depended not only on growing food, but on keeping it from spoiling before it could be consumed. One surprisingly effective method appeared in many parts of the world. People discovered that when water evaporated from porous clay containers, it carried heat away with it. A pot wrapped in wet cloth could cool its contents naturally, sometimes by several degrees. This simple principle of evaporative cooling would later inspire scientists studying the physics of refrigeration itself. As populations grew and cities expanded, preserving food became more than a household concern. Armies needed reliable supplies during long campaigns. Merchants wanted to transport fresh products over greater distances. Doctors searched for better ways to preserve medicines. The demand for dependable cooling continued to grow, but nature alone could no longer meet humanity's needs. For centuries, ice remained a luxury controlled by geography and the seasons. Entire communities waited anxiously for harsh winters, knowing that a warm year could mean empty ice houses and spoiled food months later. Few people imagined that one day cold itself could be manufactured whenever it was needed. That seemingly impossible idea would soon become reality. During the 19th century, inventors, engineers, and entrepreneurs would begin transforming refrigeration from a gift of winter into one of humanity's greatest technological achievements. Their work would not only change kitchens, but also reshape cities, agriculture, medicine, global trade, and everyday life forever. By the early 19th century, the world's appetite for ice had become enormous. What had once been a luxury for kings was turning into a booming international business. In the United States, a Boston entrepreneur named Frederick Tudor saw an opportunity that many considered impossible. He believed natural ice harvested from frozen lakes in New England could be shipped to warm regions around the world. The idea sounded absurd. Critics laughed at the thought that blocks of ice could survive weeks at sea while crossing the tropics. But Tudor discovered that thick layers of sawdust acted as an excellent insulator. Packed carefully into the holds of sailing ships, massive blocks of ice traveled thousands of miles with surprisingly little melting. Soon, American ice was arriving in the Caribbean, South America, India, and even Southeast Asia. The global ice trade exploded. Every winter, thousands of workers cut enormous rectangles from frozen lakes using horse-drawn plows and long saws. The blocks were floated through icy canals, lifted into warehouses, and stacked like giant crystal bricks. During summer, wagons loaded with ice rattled through city streets, delivering fresh blocks to homes, hotels, restaurants, hospitals, and businesses. Families stored them inside insulated wooden cabinets known as iceboxes, where the slowly melting ice kept milk, butter, meat, and vegetables cool for several days. Although revolutionary, the system had serious limitations. Ice melted continuously, deliveries had to be repeated every few days, and supplies depended entirely on cold winters. A single unusually warm season could create shortages and soaring prices. Growing cities needed something far more reliable than frozen lakes. At the same time, scientists were beginning to understand an important law of physics. They observed that when certain liquids evaporated, they absorbed heat from their surroundings, producing a cooling effect. This simple principle would become the foundation of every modern refrigerator. One of the first people to recognize its practical potential was the American inventor Oliver Evans. In 1805, he designed a theoretical machine that could create continuous cooling using a circulating refrigerant. Although he never built a working model, his design introduced the basic vapor compression cycle that still powers most refrigerators today. Building on Evans' ideas, Jacob Perkins, another American inventor working in Britain, received one of the first patents for a practical mechanical refrigeration system in 1834. His machine compressed and expanded ether inside a closed system, allowing heat to be removed from one location and released elsewhere. For the first time, cold no longer depended on winter. It could be manufactured. Early machines, however, remained expensive, unreliable, and difficult to maintain. They were far too large for ordinary homes. Instead, engineers continued refining the technology for industrial use. One of the most influential pioneers was James Harrison, a Scottish journalist who had emigrated to Australia. While cleaning printing equipment with ether, Harrison noticed how quickly the liquid evaporated and cooled nearby surfaces. Fascinated, he experimented with the effect and eventually built one of the world's first commercially successful refrigeration machines in the 1850s. His invention transformed industries that relied on preserving perishable goods. Breweries quickly adopted refrigeration because it allowed beer to be produced consistently throughout the year instead of only during cool seasons. Meat processing facilities also recognized its enormous potential. Fresh meat could now remain safe for much longer, opening entirely new markets. The impact soon spread far beyond individual factories. Refrigerated storage allowed food to be transported over much greater distances. Farmers could sell products in cities hundreds of miles away without watching them spoil along the journey. Railways began introducing refrigerated freight cars, while steamships equipped with cooling systems crossed oceans carrying meat, butter, fruit, and dairy products between continents. This technological breakthrough quietly reshaped the global economy. Countries rich in farmland but far from major population centers suddenly gained access to international markets. Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, and other agricultural exporters could now ship chilled or frozen products to Europe, creating entirely new trading networks. Yet, despite these remarkable advances, refrigeration remained something most people experienced indirectly. The machines were enormous, noisy, and designed for factories, warehouses, ships, and commercial buildings. Inside ordinary homes, families still relied on deliveries of natural ice and traditional wooden iceboxes. The dream of a compact, reliable refrigerator sitting inside every kitchen was still years away. Achieving that goal would require safer refrigerants, electric motors, improved insulation, and entirely new manufacturing techniques. When those innovations finally came together in the early 20th century, they would permanently transform daily life in ways few inventors could have imagined. By the early 20th century, refrigeration was ready to leave factories and enter ordinary homes. The missing ingredient was electricity. As electric power spread through towns and cities, inventors began designing compact refrigerators that families could use every day. Instead of waiting for the ice wagon, homeowners could now produce cold whenever they needed it. The first household refrigerators were expensive and often considered luxury appliances. Large compressor units sat on top of or beside insulated cabinets, filling kitchens with the steady hum of mechanical cooling. Wealthier families quickly embraced the technology, not only because it made life more convenient, but because it dramatically reduced food waste. Fresh milk lasted longer, leftovers could be safely stored, and families no longer needed to shop every single day. Manufacturers soon recognized that simplicity was just as important as performance. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, companies redesigned refrigerators into the familiar upright cabinets we recognize today. Compressors became quieter, insulation improved, and automatic temperature controls removed much of the guesswork from food storage. Refrigerators gradually evolved from luxury items into practical household essentials. But early refrigeration came with hidden dangers. Many of the chemicals used as refrigerants, including ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and methyl chloride, worked well at transferring heat, yet they could also be toxic or highly flammable. Leaking systems occasionally caused serious accidents, reminding engineers that cooling food should never come at the cost of human safety. In 1928, a team of chemists introduced a new family of refrigerants known as chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. Marketed as safer, odorless, and non-flammable, they were celebrated as a major breakthrough. For decades, these chemicals helped make domestic refrigerators more reliable and accelerated their adoption around the world. By the middle of the 20th century, refrigerators had become common features in millions of homes, changing daily routines in ways previous generations could scarcely imagine. Instead of buying only what could be eaten immediately, families could store food for days or even weeks. Supermarkets expanded because customers could safely keep larger quantities at home. Seasonal harvests became available year-round through refrigerated transport and storage. Fresh fruit from one continent could appear on dinner tables thousands of kilometers away. Fish caught offshore could reach inland cities while still fresh. Entire global supply chains quietly depended on one simple principle: keeping things cold. The impact reached far beyond the kitchen. Hospitals relied on refrigeration to preserve medicines, blood supplies, vaccines, and laboratory samples. Scientific research accelerated because temperature-sensitive materials could be stored safely for extended periods. Restaurants, schools, and food manufacturers built their operations around dependable refrigeration, improving both efficiency and public health. Then came an unexpected discovery. During the 1970s and 1980s, scientists found that CFCs, once praised as safe, were damaging Earth's protective ozone layer. The same chemicals that had transformed refrigeration were allowing more harmful ultraviolet radiation to reach the planet's surface. It was a global environmental challenge that demanded international cooperation. Governments, scientists, and manufacturers responded by developing alternative refrigerants with lower environmental impact. New international agreements encouraged the gradual phase-out of CFCs, leading to safer and more sustainable cooling technologies. Modern refrigerators continue to evolve, using improved insulation, highly efficient compressors, and refrigerants designed to reduce environmental harm while consuming less electricity. Today's refrigerators are far more than insulated boxes. Many monitor internal temperatures automatically, adjust energy use based on demand, and even connect to home networks. Some models can alert owners when doors are left open, suggest recipes using available ingredients, or help reduce food waste through smart inventory systems. Yet beneath all these digital features, they still rely on the same fundamental scientific principle discovered nearly 2 centuries ago: moving heat from one place to another. It is easy to overlook the refrigerator because it works quietly in the background of everyday life. Unlike spectacular inventions such as aeroplanes or rockets, it rarely demands attention. Yet its influence reaches almost every aspect of modern civilization. It changed agriculture by allowing farmers to reach distant markets. It transformed cities by making year-round food supplies possible. It improved public health by slowing the growth of harmful bacteria. It made global trade more efficient and helped billions of people enjoy safer, fresher food every single day. The story of the refrigerator is not simply the story of one machine. It is the story of humanity's centuries-long struggle against one of nature's oldest forces. From Persian icehouses and Roman snow pits to sailing ships packed with frozen lake ice, from noisy mechanical compressors to the smart appliances found in modern kitchens, every generation built upon the discoveries of those before it. What began as a desperate attempt to stop food from spoiling became one of the most important technological revolutions in history. The refrigerator did more than keep things cold. It quietly reshaped how humanity eats, trades, heals, and lives. And every time its compressor hums to life, it continues a journey that began thousands of years ago, when people first dreamed of capturing winter and making it last forever.